look like OCD because they had to tell us that the woman in that love energy like that is something wrong with them. That's nesting. The higher the motherly frequency and that love of the being a mother, playing that mother role is, the more you're going to nest. You're going to be pruning, making yourself up your way.
That's
You
it.
might want feathers in your hair. That flower you picked off your own garden this morning, it was so pretty. It looked good right here behind my ear today.
That's it.
That's that energy. Now, if all of the women can be safe in that energy, the whole energy of the planet shifts to heaven. But they can't feel safe because the warring patriarchs have the energy upset with the bloodletting rituals. And that's what the communion at the church is. And that's why you was born a sinner. It's a sin right.
Wow. Yeah.
Babylonian blood magic, simulated cannibalism ritual. In the spirit realm, the energy is the same. Eat of my flesh, drink of my blood.
Yeah, that's deep. That's deep.
Donald J. gonna announce it. It's gonna be big. As he don't say it's gonna be big. He said, could be huge. Gonna be huge.
You know how he talk. You know how he talk. Yo, you know what I want to show you too, Rod? A brother gave me this at the gathering, man. He gave me an eagle feather, man. This brother, what's the brother name? I got it. Windwalker. I didn't remember his name last time. I'm gonna have a brother on the show. The brother name is Windwalker, and he gifted me a eagle feather. So I want to give a shout out to Windwalker. I thought about Rod because you know what Rod is chief. So I was like, oh, I was very thankful, man. But thank you to the brother Windwalker. He's one of the groups that represented at the Million Man March in '95, I think, when Farrakhan had it in DC. So shout out to that brother, man, and shout out to everybody out there representing the land. You know, Rod, man, we got an important show tonight. Our people know a lot about the Bible. The Bible is a book that any hotel you go to see a Bible. You go to anywhere you go, pretty much a Bible's everywhere. Wherever you go, there's a Bible somewhere. So everybody's familiar with the spiritual text that we know of as the Bible. People are familiar with the Quran. People are familiar with some other books like the Book of Enoch, things like that. One spiritual text that I would say the Black community isn't very familiar with, that other communities are familiar with, Indian communities, the Bhagavad Gita. And being that we were a global people, being that at one time on the planet, when you looked around, it was a whole lot of brothers that looked like us or darker. Being that we are an ancient race, it's time for us to dive deep into these ancient texts that could be of great, tremendous help to us during this awakening. As you say, something's about to happen in a disclosure. These texts could awaken stuff in us, Rod, that has not been awakened yet. I know you dive deep into a lot of these spiritual texts. One of the sharpest brothers I know when it comes to ancient history. So let's talk about this Bhagavad Gita, Rod Hayes. Let's talk about the characters in it, the purpose of it, and what can we learn from it? Let's talk about this Bhagavad Gita. I heard Sadhguru talk about it on YouTube. What is your opinion and what's your take on the Bhagavad Gita, Rod?
So the Gita is actually an excerpt from a larger text called the Mahabharata.
Mm.
In India,
What was the event early this year that ushered in the golden age? What was the name of that again?
it was called the Mahabharata.
Maharta. Okay, and so that's the Maharta, and the Bhagavad Gita comes from the Mahabharata.
Right, which is a
Okay,
much larger text.
okay, okay. They
There's
sound similar.
also, yeah. So they have the prime text of a lot of, so Hinduism is not really a religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on more your caste and which spiritual school of thought you espouse because of your family line.
Right.
When you look at the overall text, right, they got chapters called sutras. The Bhagavad Gita is it's a narrative of a story between the charioteer named Arjuna, who's talking to Lord Krishna, right? Now, if you know in Kemet, we have what's called KRST, Karast. Krishna is the Hindu variant of the same energy, right? So it means the anointed. And the anointed is the one who raises the sacred secretion. The physical anointing is done by the women in the clan with the oil. So now in Christianity, they use olive oil. But in the ancient cultures, they use the oil of the alligator that they get from the alligator's brain, his cerebral spinal fluid. It looked the same. Then some over here, they use alligator oil, right? All these oils is to symbolically give you the spiritual initiation in the physical world that matches your spiritual initiation in the spiritual world. So as you anoint the child, as he grow, he's going to be looking for markers that's going to allow him to activate. So he's going to become the Karast or the Kursna, and he's going to be the heir apparent to restore Earth at the close of the age. This is the story where Krishna explaining to Arjuna that, so Arjuna asked him a question early in the text about why do he see family members that's taking up both sides of the war against each other. And Krishna goes on to explain to him that in spiritual war, some of the people in our family in a past life was probably our mortal enemy. And it shows up in the spiritual conflict when you're looking at it with a spiritual vision.
Okay.
So Krishna was able to see spiritually, and he was able to recognize what Arjuna was looking at and explain to him. And he go into a lot of other what they call wisdom teachings. The basic premise of the book is to explain the spiritual warfare and the battle on earth between what we say men and angels, or angels and men, gods and men, mortals and immortals, right? So all of that is those ancient war scrolls. There's a lot of them in India, but they're not even all written as if it's a war dynamic taking place. Some of them are written as spiritual teachings, but it's still part of spiritual warfare.
Right. Right. Now, who else? Who are some of the in the Bible? You got the characters in the Bible. You got Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Mary. Who are some of the characters in the Bhagavad Gita?
It's the two main characters. The two main characters is having a discussion, right? So it'll put you in the mind of the Machiavelli Art of War, where you have a military philosopher that's having a conversation with a battle-tested military general. The philosopher gained his rank in general by going through military training in military school, where the general came up in the ranks from a soldier on the battlefield to rise through the ranks as a general. And the Art of War, Machiavelli, is this dialogue between the two to understand how the one that was on the battlefield see the battlefield different than the one that was trained in the boardroom or in the battle room, the war room.
And who's the two having the dialogue?
So in the Bhagavad Gita, is Lord Krishna is having this conversation with Arjuna about the spiritual warfare. Right. And the comparative analysis was Prince Niccolo Machiavelli's Art of War, where he wrote it for Leonardo Piero Medici when he was rising to power in I think it was Italy.
You know, a lot of people, Rod, when they think about the Bible, they look at the Bible as a prophetic book, and they talk about revelations and how a lot of things are coming to pass. Is there text in the Bhagavad Gita that you could look at modern time and look at 2024 and say, "Damn, Bhagavad Gita is right on point with what's happening right now"?
The spiritual warfare aspect, because even now, when the ones that's the chosen ones begin to speak out and tell what they know, you have family members that want to silence them, right?
Uh-huh.
We call them matrix agents, right?
Right.
But really what it is they programmed by the world, and the ones that's the chosen ones is programmed to do a job for the world when they get in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the it's a lot of different wisdom teachings in there. Arjuna and Krishna being the main characters, but they do talk about, they call other names of the people they looking at while they're giving the discussion, but the main characters are still Arjuna and Krishna.
Mm-hmm. When we talk about the spiritual war, just to use a modern example, I forgot who I was interviewing the other day, and we might have been talking about, what's the young brother name, y'all? We was talking about the archons. What's the young brother name? Oh, RFG, the chosen one. And I was talking
Mm-hmm.
about, if if this is let's say this is a game, a holographic projection, a game that's being played, and we're talking about entities like the archons or whatever. When I asked him about your children, I want to ask you about your parents, Rod. What if your parents, as much as we respect Big Mama and our mother, a lot of people have horrible relationships with their mother. What advice would you give to them if there's spiritual warfare going on between them and their mother? Their mother may be programmed by the Matrix, and they may have come down here to reprogram the Matrix. What advice would you give them, Rod?
I would tell them, don't try to fight with your parents. You got to lead by example. Because your parents, like I said, this is funny. You would bring up a recent interview, and the recent one of my lives. I was like, we have to learn to respect our elders, even though some of them batshit crazy,
Mm, mhm,
right?
mhm,
They've
mhm,
been a lot of them have been indoctrinated so well by the enemy that they
mhm,
can't tell who they are versus who their ancestors were. Who they believe they a whole different set of people than the people they was before 1492.
mm.
This is why we are dressed up like everybody but the organic originals from the land.
Right. Indeed. Somebody in the chat, and this was actually one of the things I want you to touch on. Where's it at? Where's it at? I want to bring this up right away, right now, since you brought it up. Could you talk about the three modes, since we're talking about the Bhagavad Gita, the three modes of material nature?
Yeah, so that's the same material is the same as the states of matter, solid,
Uh,
liquid, and gas.
uh,
We look at those as the solid being earth, the liquid being water, which is the symbol for spirit, the steam being the emanating source of all. So as we go through the three folds of the material world, we become in tune with our a higher consciousness that would be in this third state of matter, which would be a gaseous state, what we call the nine ether.
mm-hmm,
Right. So the nine ether is the oversoul, overspirit, the collective unconscious. Then you have the water, which is the symbol for spirit in the physical world. And then you have the earth, which is solid matter, which the human body has all three components, plus the fourth element of fire, the fifth element being the ether.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Right. So those three states of matter are also states of consciousness
mm-hmm,
according to your spiritual development.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. A quick question. It's a little off topic from the Bhagavad Gita, but it came to my mind, so I guess it's meant for me to ask you. Um, a lot of people call us non-ether beings. I've heard a lot of people refer to us through the years of me being in this study as non-ether beings, and they refer to our hair as non-ether hair. They refer to it as antennas. I always wondered, Rod, you know, I hear spirals. We learning more and more about the importance of the spiral and the coil and things of that nature. Why when we're born, when we first incarnate into this realm and we take on this avatar, why would as a baby coming out the mother's womb, out the portal, why is our hair straight and it takes a while to develop that spiral, that galaxy spiral? Why don't we come down here with the 9 ether? Why does it take a year or 2 or 3 and then you see the hair spiraling more and more?
That's only certain ones. I was born nappy hair.
Okay.
I was born with nappy hair. My mom used to call me a little raisin head boy, talking about nappy hair.
Yeah.
Right. So that's based on you sitting in the amniotic fluid. Hair tends to relax in water. Right.
Okay.
So when you've been in there for 9 months, it's going to take a while for the oils and the air from around it to interact with the hair itself to cause it to change state. But normally the ones born with straight hair, they end up with what's called curly locks. That's like 8 ether. Right. The 9 ether is the real tight stuff. What they call it, BB shots and robo knots. You remember that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, BB shots. I ain't hear that in a while. BB shots. I ain't hear that in a while. Since Martin, the sitcom Martin. Oh man. Wow.
Yeah. So, but that's the 9 ether. The true 9 ether, they don't really grow long hair. They normally have naturally short hair and naturally don't grow long. But some of us, when we right between 8 and 9, we can grow a big afro. You know, and then if you really look at the afro is the attempt to straighten out the kinks in the hair by using, you know, picking it out, you know, poofing it up, and then pack it down, because they don't know nothing about packing the afro down, you know, to make sure that it's symmetrical, you know.
Right.
But when you grow up in the 70s, you've seen it. You've seen it firsthand. Everybody tending to their afro. My whole family had afros in Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah. Afros used to be real big. You know, the universe, I was talking to Dr. B the other day. I told Dr. B, I said, if you look at the universe, like, you know how they say the universe is a brain, and they'll show the brain with the neurons coming out, then they'll show the universe. The universe almost looks like an afro, Rod. That shit look like one huge afro that keeps going, Rod.
Yeah, so that's dark matter.
Yeah.
That's dark matter. You gotta remember, it's just like being inside of the uterus. We just inside of a bigger version called creation, right? And the only way you can get in is through a portal.
Yeah.
But creation itself is a galactic portal, right? So Prime Creator filters down information and puts the rest of everything in order by utilizing a agency of man in the realm of humanity in order for us to fix the problems. So we got at the close of last age, so the Piscean age closed out now. We in the early days of the Aquarian. The energy ain't fully hit yet, but it's revving up. And this is being told by the solar flares, by the Schumann resonance, by the electromagnetic field that they call the Van Allen belt. The Van Allen belt is doing all kind of stuff different than it normally does. That's the Pleiadian light lock. When they be talking about we in the dome, if we was in the true dome, at the bottom where the dome meet the earth, you would have a perpetual air spiral all the way around. Right. Then they want to use the echo effect of a pop bloom in a hollow chamber. But the reason why that's not a good experiment to explain us being in the dome is because when it thunder in New York, you don't hear it in LA. Right. And the reason being is it's called the dissipation of sound. If you was in the dome and the thunder was being echoed through the dome, when it strike one place, you would hear it every place. Right. So the sheer volume within inside the confines of atmosphere is so vast that the sound can't travel simultaneously from New York to LA for you to hear the thunderstorm that's taking place in New York. It's the
Right.
same. You can't hear the thunderstorms that's happening in Australia, but if we was in the dome and the sound of thunder was the identifier, then once that sound of thunder go off, everybody in the dome would hear it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is a couple of things, but the Van Allen belt is the Pleiadian light lock that they talk about who can loose the bands of the Pleiades.
Right.
Right. And it's backed up by what's called Arcturian light conjure, because they trapped us in here in order for the good ones and the bad ones to fix the problem before they left the lock. Right. So this is the war in the spirit realm being confined to a specific geography or galactic location, right,
Mm-hmm.
which is on the earth. So I tell people that the war in heaven on Nibiru landed on earth as a sibling rivalry up there came to us as the war between the forces of dark and the forces of light. In other words, the light-skinned niggas versus the dark-skinned niggas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So, but we ain't looking at it like that. We looking at it like some good people and some bad people is fighting it out. But they brothers and sisters and cousins and uncles and nieces and nephews, right? This goes back to the Gita, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all related, because this is why Arjuna had to tell, Krishna had to tell Arjuna that you have these people in the families. Everybody got them in their family, even though they're not from the same spiritual position in the conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like it's a war between intelligence versus ignorance. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they allow ignorance to run rampant until somebody come along and say, that's enough of the dumbass shit.
Mm-hmm.
So then we get to the point where, okay, if it's enough of doing things from the perspective of ignorance, what do we have to do now to shift to intelligence?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So to give you the example, they gave us something called artificial intelligence. That's
Mm-hmm.
4-point quantum encryption.
Mm-hmm.
But the human intelligence is tied to your spiritual body, which gives you a 19-point quantum encryption across 19 dimensions. That's 19 times 19 to the 19th power.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why 19 is the sacred seal. Alpha meets omega. Beginning meets the end. So when we being trapped by accepting the structure of the religious dogmas that they gave us without questioning it. But soon as you start questioning it, more questions are going to arise till you get to the point where it's going to be so easy to see through it. But other people that didn't go through the process, they can't see it. So now you've been separated by intelligence versus ignorance.
Right.
And that goes back to everything we did is predicated on divide and conquer. They divided the humans up by geography, skin color, class, ranks, system, style, all of them different means of dividing us. And we still have the ability, after all the divisive tactics used to make us the worst, we still have the capacity to love each other and not care that other people don't want you to love somebody. Right. So you might have a friend, and everybody be like, man, why you hanging with dude, man? Dude, a piece of shit. No, that's my man's. He a piece of shit to you. He probably supposed to be a piece of shit to you, but he supposed to be a rose to me. He's supposed to be a diamond in the rough to me. And he ain't, everybody ain't supposed to get along. And this is one of the problems where people can't take criticism. They think everybody supposed to kiss everybody else's ass. I have not read in my book of life, nobody else is where it say we obligated to kiss any ass. And then my mama also told me, you don't got to kiss nobody ass, but don't nobody got to kiss yours either. And I felt that. That sounded legit. But when you go to church, they want you to kiss Jesus ass, Mary ass, God ass. But God don't want you to kiss his ass. because he wouldn't have gave you those qualities of divinity that make you be able to stand on your own 2 feet. This also part of the discussion that Arjuna is having with Krishna, right? Embracing your spiritual path going to put you at conflict with people you love. It don't mean that you don't love them any less. It just means that your spiritual development, it's like outgrowing your favorite genes because you've been eating too much. You can either lose weight or you can give up the genes. Most people gonna give up the genes because trying to lose weight is difficult and don't nobody want no hard stuff. We all want to go through life and bypass the hard part, not knowing that embracing the hard part sets you up for the rest of it to be a path of ease. But the hard part got to be addressed.
Right.
Everybody's ducking the pain in pursuit of the pleasure. Right. Them people, they stuck to the right. And the other people, they so busy inflicting the pain that they don't care about the pleasure of others because they getting their pleasure from inflicting the pain. They stuck to the left. Right. So the goal is to bump straight. That's all. You might have did some dirt back in your younger days before you knew better, but when you know better, you obligated to do better. You can't do better than what you know. This is why it's a world of knowledge versus ignorance, intelligence versus ignorance, right? The wise versus the unwise, the educated versus the uneducated. But then you got to look at education because you got what's called compartmentalized education. Back in the day when we was the husband on the farm and we tended to the farm, we knew how to do everything required to run the farm, from build the barn to cook the dinner to wash the clothes. We knew how to do it all. But now we have to specialize in something. That's to limit the capacity of your mind to connect 2 fields of knowledge together in the unified field concept in order for you to use your automotive skills, your cooking skills, your fishing skills, your hunting skills in order to navigate life. The more skills you have, the more you are adaptable and prepared for the more varying circumstances of life. They teaching us that all you need to do is go to school to be a doctor or a lawyer and you good after that. No, you not. It's doctors out here losing everything they got trying to keep up and they just can't pay their bills. It's the same with lawyers, right? But they get extra breaks that the regular people don't get, because when the doctor get in distress, he can call the American Medical Association and they can tell him what grant programs that they giving free money to doctors that's in a certain circumstance in order to bring their practice back to a profit-bearing practice. We don't have that in the regular day-to-day life. Like that's who the chief for. When you in your local area and you stuck in your life and you don't know what to do, you're supposed to ask for counsel with the chief. The chief gonna ask you a whole bunch of questions about you when he understand what you can do, and he gonna say, "Well, have you ever tried doing yada yada yada?" And you're like, "No, I'd love to do that." But that's what the problem is you never tried to do the thing that you love. So instead of chasing stuff to make money, chase what you love. Money gonna be there as a side effect of doing the right thing repeatedly. And if you're following your heart's desire, it's going to keep you doing the right thing over and over to the point where you can no longer fail. It's just going to be natural. That's why you could raise a child in a wealthy family and they can go broke. But after a while, they can't stay broke. They can't function. They have to get that bread. And they know how, based on watching their parents, that there's something in them that can allow them to become wealthy again. And this is why most people lose the generational wealth and then another person later on in the family pick it back up, right? Because this is a saying, good men create good times create bad men create bad times, and bad times create good men. It's a cycle, right? So the more that you're willing to endure and put the work in, the more you're gonna have later in your life time to live your life instead of your life living you. Most of us, our life is living us, and we was given that life by the designers of this matrix. It's not the life we chose. It's not our best life scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And most people scared to pursue their best life scenario because they all want a safety net. Ain't no safety net when you walk on a tightrope across
Right.
the Grand Canyon. You either gonna make it or you ain't. But you don't know if you don't try.
Rod, the Bhagavad Gita is a 700 verse sacred Hindu scripture, and you said it's part of a Indian epic called the how do you say it?
Mahabharata.
So we
I can't
have
pronounce it like they pronounce it because I don't talk with the Indian.
indeed.
But yeah,
So Rod, so we have in 2024, we're talking about the Bhagavad Gita. We also have to keep in mind we have Indian woman by the name they say she's a black Indian woman by the name of Kamala Harris running for president. Is there any connection? Is there any prophecy being fulfilled with Kamala being in position to being the first woman Indian president with the name like we think about Kali Yuga? Her name is Kamala Harris. Is there any prophecy being fulfilled if she becomes president, or just the fact that she's running?
it's in India. It's the story of Kamala Devi, which was a goddess, but in the Christian Western tradition, it's the whore of Babylon. Right. So when you look in Revelations, you want to know where you at. Go to the chapter that talk about the whore of Babylon and the fall of the whore of Babylon. That's where we at.
So Kamala represents the whore of Babylon?
Yeah.
Whew.
That's why Joe Brown had to tell you that she sucked her way to the top. She's a Hawk Tuah chief. she a Hawk Tuah chief.
Oh man.
But look, we be at her head. But first of all, there's more than one Kamala Harris, and one of them is a man. And this is the secret of the whore of Babylon.
Don't start that, Rob. Please don't start that. Oh man, don't say that, Rob.
It's more than one Kamala Harris, and one of them is a man. I'm just telling you. A lot of people thought I was crazy, but then they seen the receipts and was like, "Holy, why we ain't been know that?" It's all part of the Statue of Liberty, Eiffel Tower connection with Parthodon Isis, which is Paris, and the fall of the Babylonian Empire, represented by Rome, and Rome is DC proper.
Right.
A lot of us don't know DC was named Rome before they named it Washington, DC. But it was named Rome. And then the seven hills sit there. So they telling us the narrative using the program of the Christian dogma. These stories was taken from ancient texts and they was reworked so that you can't get the true meaning of them unless you figure out the location in which they from. Right? We talk about the Gita, but if you go back to the book of Daniel and it say in the one was hewn from the mountain without the hands of a workman, right? And he rolled down from the mountain to strike the feet of iron and clay, right? Now this is Sun Wukong in China, who was sealed in the mountain for 5,000 years. Right. And then Titicaca came and recited the incantation to free him. And then one of the sorcerers gave her a band to put around his head to control him because he was uncontrollable. That's why they put him in the stone in the first place. But when you get to India, it's no longer the story of Sun Wukong. Now it's the story of Hanuman. Hanuman being the handyman, being the man capable of doing all of the things that need to be done in order to solve the problem. He's able to draw from spiritual sources as well as physical sources and able to put the story together. So when you get over here, you see the monkey and the eagle in the Nazca lines, and the monkey is symbolic of the monkey mind, the Sakoma, and the eagle is symbolic of the phoenix taking flight on the awareness that the monkey mind is the untamed mind that you need to tame in order to attain the wisdom required. So in the Sun Wukong story, he journeyed to the west to recover the 10 scrolls of wisdom. The 10 scrolls of wisdom is 10 different things that's being used to rule: economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, war, and health. All 10 of those things represent the 10 scrolls of wisdom, because when you understand how they're being used against you, you can use the same attack to defend as in Aikido, as in turning the force and momentum of your enemy around and thrusting it back up on you. That's all part of the Earth clans coming together, bringing their great heroes from around the world to form one juggernaut, like the Autobots formed one big giant robot, Optimus Prime.
Optimus Prime, yes.
Right. Optimus meaning the optimum, meaning the best of, and the prime meaning the original, the first one, the root. So they tell us the story in all of these narratives, but because we've been disassociated from who we was, our natural inclination to put these things together has been undermined and usurped by people that came to undermine and usurp who we were.
What does the Bhagavad Gita, Rod, say about, you was talking about the war in the heavens, and you mentioned Nimrod and it coming down to earth. Does the Bhagavad Gita go into the war that took place in the heavens?
No. It's looking at earth, and it's looking at the families lined up on opposite sides of the battlefield, looking at the war that's being fought on the earth, not the war fought in the heavens. That's a different scroll.
Is there any connection? You know how Ashwar Crazy back in the day, he had the video Christianity stolen from ancient Kemet. Is the Bhagavad Gita, is it connected to any of the other stories we hear, like let's say the Anunnaki or ancient Kemet or Atlantis or something? Is it connected to any of these other systems?
Yeah, because when you start studying the Vimanas Wars, you end up in India, because the Vimana Sutras is also taken from larger chapters of the Mahabharata. And then you have the Vedas, which is the wisdom teachings. The Vedas is contemporary with like Proverbs and Ecclesiastics, but it also tells stories in there, short stories too. So these texts are all what you call ancient pyramid texts. A lot of them is still in scroll form, untranslated, in the Tibetan mountains and in the Vatican library. Those was the ones they wasn't allowed to destroy, because the information they have was critical to the people.
Right.
All hieroglyphics translate. There's no hieroglyphics that don't translate.
So how is these going to translate? What do you mean?
They just don't know the keys to unlock the language.
Right.
But the language will translate itself if you understand body language, because most hieroglyphic writings is taken from the movements of the body when in physical motion. But it's like a scene from an animation.
Ooh. Hieroglyphics is imitated body language. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, the ones where you see people playing scenes.
Yeah.
Look, when you reach the alpha brain state and you sitting in the meditative position before the hieroglyphics, if you got the right DNA, they will come to life and play a cartoon for you. The cartoon will play out just like the story being told if you're from the bloodline. But if you're not from the bloodline, the pictures will remain stagnant and still. They won't move. But if you're from the bloodline, while you're looking at them, they'll start to take form. They'll start to move. They'll tap into your energy field, and you will be awakened to what the hieroglyphics say without knowing what they say. That's all part of the awakening. When I say cartoon, I mean animated, like The Simpsons, Or matter of fact, they even got an ancient hieroglyphic depiction of Marge Simpson. That blew my mind.
Wow. What do you think about? I had a brother who writes light language, and he wrote some things down, Rod. What do you think about individuals who they go into this automatic writing and they write this language that we may not know what it
That's
is?
readable.
Uh-huh.
It looked like gibberish, but it's readable. It's readable. It's full of symbols. So what he's doing is channeling,
Uh-huh.
but he's not translating the channel.
Right.
So it's like you put your VCR in to record Big Time Saturday Night. You thinking you finna record wrestling, but you recorded the Spanish, what they call Sabado Gigante, Giant Saturday, the Big Saturday. So yeah, and now you got it on the video. You know what the hell they saying because you don't speak Spanish,
Right.
right?
Gotcha.
But you got another sense by watching what's going on. You might not speak the language, but you can grasp the basics of what's being displayed in the foreign language. It's the same with that type of channel. If he got to learn that language one symbol at a time.
Mm.
And then it won't be all over the page like that. It's going to either be from top to bottom, from bottom to top, from right to left, or left to right. It won't be all over the page. That's because he haven't tuned in to what the channel is telling him. He's just, going into what they call an autotonic state where he just automatically put it on there. He has to learn that language. That's his higher consciousness talking to him in an ancient tongue that we haven't used in thousands of years. Right?
Yes.
Consciously, he don't know what it means, but subconsciously, he know what every one of them things mean.
Shout out to the brother Dave. This is brother. He brought this to the gathering of the masses. You know, it's funny. I said this on one of my previous shows, Rod. He gave this to me, and I folded it, and it got wet. I had it in my bag, and it got wet, and it was like a snowflake formed in the middle of it. Like, this is for water right here. It formed right perfectly in the middle. You know what I'm saying? So there's definitely some power in this writing and what the brother's doing. And I'm gonna tell the brother, like you said, to really tap in one symbol at a time to figure out exactly what's going on here, man.
It's a book called Encyclopedias of Occult Symbols. That's what he needs, because he'll see all of those symbols in there. And then where you got variations, that's from the twist of the handwriting. Right. So I might write cursive, and my slant in my cursive might be to the right, but you might write cursive, yours might be slanted to the left. Right. So you got to understand the variations like that. And once you understand those variations, when you see the symbol, now you can use what's called the mirror principle, same but different. Right. That's what calligraphy is.
Right. What man, wow, this is a good. Let me get to. I had a few super chat questions. Let me see. Somebody said the volcano erupted in Russia signals the awakening of the bear, his cosmic roar. Aquarius, the water bearer, has tsunami warnings in Pacific Ring of Fire. What's your thoughts on this, Rod? I don't know what's going on with this.
The Great Bear is Ursa Minor and Ursa Major. This is what we call it, the Big Dipper, Little Dipper. And the galactic timing in the age of Aquarius is normally signaled by a lot of water phenomenon. Floods, rainstorms, atmospheric river overrunning the atmospheric banks, it's pouring out on the earth, where it looked like water just pouring out the sky from nowhere, but it's not just pouring out from nowhere. That's the atmospheric river reaching its channel. It's becoming too full. That's the symbol for the spirit of the people of the earth becoming full, and overrunning and waking the people up. It's all symbolism until you know what it means. Then it's telling you a story, and the story gonna always trace back to the Holy Drama.
Mm. You know, speaking of the holy drama, and we're talking about the Bhagavad Gita, one of the things it says in it is detachment. You know, we hear a lot about detachment through different spiritual teachers. And one of the things that say is detachment is not that you own nothing. Detachment is that nothing owns you. I want you to elaborate on that a little bit, because when people talk about detachment, sometimes they could confuse it with, you know, with something else, or think it means something that it doesn't mean. So what's your thoughts on this right here, and what detachment is as far as the ancient meaning of detachment, Rod?
So when you look at ownership of material things, right?
Yeah.
Can't take none of that stuff with you. Attachment is holding on to material things as if you can take them into the spiritual world with you. You already got all that stuff in the spiritual world. You just got to remember how to get it in the physical, because as above, so below. If you can activate it spiritually, you can activate it physically. The
Mm,
detachment is not to become obsessed with anything of the physical world, because it's passe. It's
mm,
all coming and going, and it's going to come and go and come and go and come and go. It's elusive. Once you try to trap it, that's when it break free. But as soon as you let it be free, that's when it condensate on your presence,
mm,
right? So people chasing the bag can't never get rich, but the people that don't give a damn, they care, but not too much. They filthy.
mm, mm.
That's the difference.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I seen when we was talking about the writings. You know, a lot of people in the chat started talking about, you know, them writing and them being left-handed or right-handed. One thing I noticed, Rock, because I play the piano, and even when not just I play the piano, when let's say I have ideas that I write with my left or right hand, I notice my right hand has a different personality than my left hand, Rod. So my left hand, if I play